sanitize. I do have a son, and he does come in here. You don't know if I've just thrown him on the table and cleaned him. So make sure you're sanitizing.
She didn't.
I did. Are you sure I didn't? No.
Yeah, people do some weird stuff in kitchens, you know.
How often do you see food prep servers or the food prep guys in the back chewing gum?
Oh, constantly, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, food, like, it's hard with, like Colin was saying, with watches too, and with gum, you know, it's kind of like, you know, it's like that personal appearance thing that, like, you want to avoid, and you want to try to help them correct that, but it's ultimately their management needs to be on them about it too. So know that, yeah, I mean, what would happen if you're chewing a piece of gum and it all fell like a huge pot of something you're making? You like pick it out, heat it up, and eat it and serve it? No, you know. So limit your chances of that happening so you don't look like a dummy when you have to go to them and say, "Oops, I dropped my gum in this soup." You know, or whatever.
Or your phone.
Or your phone. I've seen that a lot. People texting right over the fryer.
Oh.
I've seen that before. You know, it's like, oh, you just fried your iPhone, didn't you? Literally. But
Consequences, guys. So we're putting the fryer on. I see you with your cell phone.
just put it right in the basket.
Throw
Yeah.
the basket. Second time we're gonna dump it in.
Yeah, you know, it's amazing. You know, we see hair restraints is another one. Like, use common sense. If your hair is right down dipping in the food, you know, no, not cool. You know, tie it back, wear a hairnet if you need to. Some places we go in, even with like a short beard like mine, they'll make me wear full beard net and hairnet. And that's fine. You know, that's their policy. You know. The regs don't really state anything about it exactly, but, you know, work with your kitchen managers to know, you know, what's your policy on hairnets? What's your policy on long hair? Does it have to be tied back? Does it not? You know, so, but that's another kind of thing that's important, but often gets overlooked along with, watches, chewing gum. You know, big one's eating. I always walk in and there's just a plate of food. People are just eating on the prep table. It's like, yeah, I know you get hungry and you're busy and you want to snack, but you can't just have your food out eating it everywhere around the food you're making. So that's one too. So don't smoke, eat, or drink in the kitchen, you know. And it sounds like people really do. I walk in, people are smoking cigarettes, marijuana, whatever, all the time. You know, oh sorry, I step out back, you know. But
plus you never know if, you know, if it's somebody's food and I walk into the kitchen, I'm just like, that looks like custom food, but
yeah,
it isn't. And, you know, how do you know that somebody was, you know, changing shifts or something doesn't pick it up and start, you know, serving it or something like that?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's amazing the stuff that we find and things like that. But you know, and it's kind of just making sure that, you know, you just keep that same eye about everything that's going on. And, you know, what does it look like? Does it look right? If you see 50 flies flying around back here, you know, flies are nasty too. You don't want a bunch of them around food. So, you know, you need to have a pest control plan and things like that for those. But yeah, you know, out here, kind of the same, just looking at general equipment, things like that. Do you guys know what these are? These things that hang down in here? Yeah, so yeah, there's a grease fire, and these things will go off and they'll spray like a pretty caustic, like acidic chemical down that suppresses the fire in here. So that's one of the biggest calls I get on my after hours team is restaurant fires. So if you have a fire and it sets these off, it pops these caps and that stuff sprays everywhere. Probably all the way back to that door and past the front counter. So you have to wash, rinse, and sanitize everything in this kitchen if that ever happens. So these things are, I mean, they do their job, but it's super toxic. It's like spraying a bunch of acid all over everything back here. So it's important to know what these are and keep these clean. See, they're pretty clean. Like this one's got some, you know, like grease and some dust building up right above the fryer. That's pretty common. But make sure it's not, I've seen like stalactites of like grease just hanging off of them and stuff. I've seen them before where there was so much grease up here, there was like 2 grasshoppers and a moth just stuck to the stuck to the grease. It was like a mosquito in an amber tree or something. I mean, it was, yeah. So, you know, there's all kinds of nasty stuff we see. But clean it up. The food tasted good, but you know, stuff like that. Keeping these can openers clean is a big one. These can get pretty nasty sometimes. And then, so you guys work with cans, like, you know, like they do a lot of like anything opening up cans and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
so, you know, so being aware of dented cans, you teach them about like botulism. I mean, botulism's rare, but if you bust open a can that had it in it, you're gonna make some people definitely sick. So it's huge to remember that if it's dented on any of those seams, top seam, bottom seam, or on the side seam there, that you just don't use those cans. I've seen places using cans, they're like, you know, punctured and leaking, and you know, they're like, oh, we'll just open it up, pour it in a container, and use it later. It's like, no, you don't know when that happened. You don't know what's been in there. If you didn't physically drop it and dent it, then you can't just assume it's fine. You know. So yeah, that's another one I see quite a bit. You guys have here?
You guys ever wonder why you go to a restaurant and they've got like the asterisk and the statement at the bottom about foodborne illness? You guys see those things? No.
No one has
Those
seen
folks,
this.
It's there.
Yeah.
You're
Well,
finding your life away.
I mean, you can, you know, just one of the things I've been learning is just because a food is palatable doesn't mean it's necessarily safe. So like grounds, you know, like hamburger, you can order it. You know, how do you like your hamburger? Rare to, you know, to well done. But restaurants can do that because they have what's called a consumer advisory. It's that one F on your sheet. And so it's okay to serve something that isn't fully cooked, like a runny egg, as long as they tell people, like, hey, this can be served raw or undercooked, and it could give you foodborne illness, but it's okay. So.
I like that reaction.
Yeah. So you might want to tell, you know, just be conscious of that, and tell people to order it, you know, well done if you just want to be safe.
Next time you go to a restaurant, you're looking at the menu. Look at the bottom area, and you'll see that.
Yeah, and if you don't have that on your menu, and then somebody gets sick, you know, you don't know what some people want to do. If they want to sue you and say like, hey, I didn't know about my risk eating here. So we come in and we do a menu check and make sure that people have that so that they avoid any troubles.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. You know, that violation is really to protect, like Colin said, the facility itself, who's taking the risk to serve foods like that, so that they don't get sued. But it's important to notify consumers. I mean, especially like with more ethnic foods, like everybody knows if you eat a raw hamburger, it can make you sick, right? But not everybody knows that, you know, there may be some Middle Eastern dish that you really don't know what's in it. It just looks good, you know, but it may have raw whatever. There's a ton of stuff all over the world that you guys probably know that has raw or undercooked food in it, big time, and people just don't know what it is. Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of like raw meat and some Italian stuff, and you know, like ceviche and things like that. But it's good, but a lot of everybody doesn't know how it's made. You know, but yeah, those are big ones to look at. Let's see. So do these guys do dishes and stuff too?
Yes, do they?
Of course,
ever.
yeah.
We have a whole 3-compartment sink and a dishwasher
That's
over
part,
there.
right? No. So, you know, along with your wash, rinse, and sanitize, you know, it's important back there to make sure there's, you know, hot and cold water at that sink, obviously. You know, it's important to make sure that when you're done with dishes that you let them air dry, and don't just like, if you stack them over there soaking wet, and they're never gonna dry, and I've pulled them apart before and they're like moldy and nasty. I mean, they'll never dry like that. Yeah, so, you know, whenever you see, you know, or do people do dishes and stuff, yeah, you gotta air dry those things. That sanitizer has to be able to air dry on there to make sure that it's actually clean. So, that's the point we see a lot is people just dump them real quick in the water, and then they'll rinse them off and just throw them on the shelf. Well, A, they didn't sanitize it, and they didn't let it air dry, so it's really not clean. And we go in places and look at their so-called clean dish racks all the time, and they're crusted with food and whatever else. So,
Does anyone know what types of sanitizers there are?
yeah.
That you can use?
Ooh, we didn't go into the different kinds.
Okay. What do you use at home?
Germax.
So, bleach, yeah, Clorox, chlorine. The other one I just learned about when I got here is called quat ammonium. So it's a basic solution. So you can use either one for surfaces. We also don't want to make sure it's not too high. If something's too low, it's non-vertical, right? But if it's too high, that residue can get on plates and stay there, and you don't want to eat on that. So we always have these like little test strips with us to make sure they're in that like happy window.
Where are you guys gonna find these at in this classroom?
The dish pit,
Where?
the wall.
Where? On the closet door across from the three-part sink.
So even if you don't know how it works or why it works, as long as you have the test strips, and you know if you use this quat one, and it's like it's not changing color. Why isn't it changing color? Well, it might be the bleach. It might be actually using bleach. Like most dishwashers, they're either a bleach or a high temperature. We actually have like test strips for those too, where you can stick it on to like something metal, and because those conduct heat really well. And if this thing turns black, then you know it reached. This one's 150 degrees. Some of them are 160. And the other thing I love to point out, because I didn't know about this, but anybody know why, like that sink on the end, or any of those sinks, why they have like what you call that, where water drips into it? So it's basically called an air gap. Does anybody know why we don't just, why the water doesn't go right into the sewer? What's that? Yeah, it could be food. And that's a good one. Let's say it's just, what if it's for like washing vegetables? You're not gonna really get much. I mean, you get a little bit, and you can get it out of the drain, but anyway, it's because what we worry about, we're like sort of amateur plumbers. We make sure that backflow is prevented. So if there's like a sewage backup, we want to make sure it doesn't go into that food prep sink. So that's why it would just get onto the floor instead. So all the like the compartment sinks that aren't for hand washing, you'll see that. And I've been to a place, and actually Brian and I were at a place, and we kind of weren't sure where it went. So we had to do some more investigating on that. But so that's one thing to notice if you're ever in the back of a restaurant. Like it was 7-Eleven. Sorry, I shouldn't mention it. But they just didn't have like like an indirectly drain, and we just fixed it easily. You just cut the pipe and just kind of build a funnel to it, so it's fixable. Yeah.
So I don't know if I told them, I'm pretty sure I told my ProStart class, but I don't know if I said it loud enough for you guys to hear. I had to renew my ServSafe manager license over the summer. And the person that was teaching food safety and sanitation, she was telling me about this establishment that actually had a sewer problem, and they didn't have that gap between the sink or the piping and the floor drain. And it was actually hooked up to the ice machine, and they didn't realize that sewage was coming up, and so they ended up making poop ice. And what makes it worse, well, there's two bad things. One, it was for the elderly. Two, they didn't realize that the sewage has backed up. So the fresh ice was sitting on top of the brown ice, so they were serving that ice for a very long time. People were having like poop beverages. And after they realized what they were doing, they're pretty sure they found actual fecal matter and like toilet paper and stuff in the very bottom. So just heads up, that's kind of an extreme case, but that's the reason behind it.
That's why, ice machines are another one, for example, that can't directly drain because, and like, it's easy to see sewage, coming out of that, but, how do you see it in an ice machine? Where,
Yeah, if it's not hooked up right.
Yeah.
Ice. Just think about that next time you're going out and having some of their ice.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important. Along that same line, too. I went to like breakfast places, and they're like, those like orange juice machines that like kind of auto make orange juice all day long, like McDonald's and stuff. Well, like sometimes they'll never clean those, and like we can take the lid off sometimes, and there's just like a scum layer of mold like just floating